Thank you for that so far unearned welcome. Thank you. I hope to earn your standing ovation afterwards. Sitting will do. Thank you, Gina, for this remarkable event. I've put on similar events, and I know the effort and travail that goes into it. She's doing this for one reason only, and it's not for the money, I'll tell you. It's because of her passion and her love for this subject. And I have nothing but the greatest respect for her doing this, as well as all of you for your coming today. As you've heard, I've been a primary care physician for the past 45 years, and for the past 35, I've been a plant-based practitioner. How did that come to be? Well, this is the University of Illinois College of Medicine in Chicago, my alma mater, and I enrolled there 50 years ago. My heavens, 1968, I was a freshman. Studied hard, learned all I could from the books and from the clinics. And on June 6, 1972, I walked across the stage in the corner place. They gave me a diploma and called me doctor for the first time. As you can see, I have not changed a bit. And when I was this young man and an erstwhile young physician, I was ready to go into the world of disease and danger well armed, because I knew that I was going to be seeing at least 6 cases of leprosy every week. I was well schooled in how to diagnose and treat it. I knew I was going to see at least 5 cases of smallpox, 4 of diphtheria, probably 3 of bubonic plague, and if I was really good, I'd catch 1 of Tsutsugamuchi fever every week. There really is such a disease. I've been a physician 45 years. Know how many cases of leprosy I've seen? Saw 1 once in Louisiana. Smallpox, none, thank God. Diphtheria, still looking for that first membrane in the back of the throat. No plague yet. And still looking for my first case of Tsutsugamuchi fever. 45 years, even though I was learned to diagnose and treat these diseases, I've spent those years dealing with Ken. Real patient in my practice, nice guy, sweet man, funny guy, family man, but his body is a biological train wreck. He's obese by over 60 pounds. He's on metformin and insulin for his type 2 diabetes, on lisinopril and metoprolol for his high blood pressure. His lipids are out of control, and he hasn't had an erection for years due to his arteries being so clogged up. His wife, Karen, is just the mirror image of him as well. Ken sits out in my waiting room along with dozens of other of his ilk, and the Kens and Karens of this Western world are occupying the waiting rooms of doctors' offices across this country, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. All Western physicians are dealing with Kens and their ilk, and the grim group of diseases that they bring with them: obesity, high blood pressure, obesity, type 2 diabetes, blood vessel disease, inflammatory conditions. I went into medicine to cure disease. We don't cure these diseases. Most doctors don't. We manage them. We manage high blood pressure. We manage diabetes. Nonsense. I didn't go to medicine to write prescriptions and manage chronic disease. I went to cure these people. These are all curable diseases. Every single one of them are reversible. Don't let any doctor or patient tell you otherwise. These are all reversible diseases. Every doctor, Dr. Kahn, Dr. Goldner, all of us who do plant-based lifestyle and dietary medicine, we all have dozens of patients who used to have high blood pressure, who used to have diabetes, who used to have asthma, who used to have lupus. These are all reversible diseases. But if you talk to the doctors and you look in the textbook for the cause of these diseases, you run into 2 terms that stop all additional thought: Etiology unknown. We don't know what causes them. Oh, it's some genetic molecular problem somewhere. But don't worry, the smart guys in the lab at NIH are working 24/7 to figure out the molecular mechanisms. And when they figure it out, they'll come up with a mesocillin that you can prescribe for your patients and restore them to glowing health. But until then, you just keep prescribing your statins and your stents and hope they don't have their stroke when you're on call. That's basically how medicine is being practiced. Nonsense. The etiology is not unknown. I know the etiology, so does Dr. Goldner, so does Dr. Kahn, and so does Gina. All of us know the answer, and it's written on a plaque in my office that I point to when patients are sitting in front of me like Ken, overweight, hypertensive, diabetic, clogged up, inflamed. Doc, how did I get this way? Is it my genes? Not your genes. I point to the plaque on my wall that says it. It's the food. It's what you're eating. And the second line is really important. It's been the food all along. I've been this way since high school. What have you been eating since high school? What is your daily diet? Let's talk about that. I want to give you some images to really blaze this into your memory bank when you think about eating animals or talking to other folks. What's changed? Our diet has changed. In the I entered medical school in 1968. Here was our chicken consumption after that time. Here's cheese consumption in the past 40 plus years. All of these conditions, all of these foods. Here's the vegetable oil. Here's the rise of the fast food industry. Here's all the vegetable oils in the fried chicken fryers and the French fried fryers. This is all the vegetable oils that we're eating, all the olive oil we're pouring on our salads. And you can see what's happened, processed sugar, how much more we're eating, the cheese, just the fats from 4 pounds to 74 pounds, the meat, an extra 100 pounds. The vegetables have plummeted, our vegetable intake. Our calorie intake's going up. Soft drinks from none back at the turn of last century to 53 gallons. There's a gallon a week most Americans are consuming. So let me give you some images to really help fortify your understanding of what's going on here. When people eat things, oh, it's gone, out of sight, out of mind. Maybe so, but it's not out of your bloodstream. When you eat a meal like you're going to be eating here this week and like we are advocating for you to eat based on whole plant foods, here's a lovely salad and a hearty vegetable soup, and here's a quinoa and zucchini boats and steamed green and yellow vegetables. When you eat a meal like this, if an hour later I was to sneak up on you with a needle and a syringe in my hand, and when you weren't looking, I drew 5 cc's of blood and let it sit in a tube for an hour, this is what it would look like. The red clot goes to the bottom, the liquid part rises to the top, the serum, and it should be crystal clear. You can read newsprint through normal serum. But you eat a standard Western diet, you have bacon and eggs for breakfast, you have a cheeseburger or pizza for lunch, fried chicken for dinner. When you eat this food, the heavy fats in the beef, the butter fat in the cheese, the egg yolk in the mayonnaise, the vegetable oil in the fries, the butter fat in the milkshake, all this fat oozes out into your blood. And for the next 5 hours, your blood looks like this. This creamy appearance here is called lipemia. It means fat in the blood. Postprandial means after eating. And your blood turns fatty. And it stays this way for a good 5 hours. Here you see they gave someone a fatty meal at hour 0. They drew blood once an hour for 6 hours. They took those 6 blood tubes, put them one after another into an instrument that measures how milky the blood is appearing, the lactescence index. And you can see the blood is getting, the blood is getting fattier and fattier and fattier and fattier. It takes the liver about 5 hours to begin to clear this out of your bloodstream. Well, think of what that means in the context of how most Americans conduct their eating day. They start their morning out with something fatty. For all the rest of the morning, their blood is running thick with fat. During this time, the artery walls are getting injured, the belly fat is increasing, and saturated fats fan inflammatory reactions around the body. It takes the liver till about noontime to clear this out of the bloodstream, just in time for lunch. People send another wave of fat through their bloodstream. The blood stays fatty all afternoon, injuring their arteries, making them obese, setting off inflammation.
It takes till about 6 in the evening for the liver to begin to clear this out of the bloodstream, just in time to visit the kernel and send another wave of fat through the bloodstream. Blood stays fatty all evening till about 10 o'clock at night. Till on the way back to the bedroom, people stop and send another wave of fat through their bloodstream. And the reality is, even if you're taking the skin off the chicken and eating wild-caught salmon, the reality is that most people in this country are keeping their blood fatty all day. Stuff never clears out of the bloodstream. You keep your blood fatty for 30 years, 40 years, there's going to be consequences to this, because there's more than just fat in that blood. There is a evil brew of molecules that cause damage to every tissue in the body. The fats make the blood thicker and more difficult to force the blood through the capillary beds. Diminishing amount of oxygen gets delivered, increase obesity, the fats clog up your insulin receptors, make you diabetic, they set off inflammation. All the hidden salt in the fast foods and the spaghetti sauces at the restaurant, the Chinese food, all this salt stiffens your arteries, raises your blood pressure, and sets off autoimmune diseases. All the sugars in the ketchup and the buns and the soft drinks stick to proteins and damage them throughout the body, aging your tissues. And this is all just on vegan junk food. You can do this on Oreo cookies and soft drinks, and those are vegan. But you add animal flesh to your diet, and you have changed the game fundamentally. You have introduced a set of toxic molecules into your bloodstream hour after hour that cause damage on a level way beyond what the fats and sugars do. The very act of cooking animal muscle, nobody eats raw meat, the very act of cooking animal muscle creates trillions of free radicals that rip electrons off every tissue in your body, rip electrons off your DNA, off your cell membranes, and all cooked meat is loaded with free radicals. New 5-GC, this is a sialic acid that only animals make, and it sets off inflammatory reactions throughout the body. And meat eaters are eating this stuff 2-3 times a day, as our paleo friends are going to find out the hard way. Not a good thing. All meat comes from the slaughterhouse. Oh, I'm sorry. The food you eat determines the microbes that live in your gut. If you eat a bunch of sugar, you're going to summon up sugar-eating microbes. Well, you eat meat and eggs every day. You're dropping down big bolts of carnitine and creatine in that meat and eggs down in your muscle and down in your gut. You're going to summon up microbes that eat carnitine and creatine. And so here's the meat and the eggs going down, and they summon up Clostridia, Peptostreptococci, nasty bacteria. Why? Because they don't care about you. They're waiting for that next piece of meat or eggs to come down. They will turn the carnitine and choline into the stuff called trimethylamine. So what? Well, your liver turns that into trimethylamine oxide. This is a molecule from hell. This drives cholesterol into your artery walls. And vegans can't make this stuff because they're not eating the meat that summons up these microbes. But the meat eaters have all this in their gut, and every piece of meat and eggs they eat, they wind up driving cholesterol into their artery walls. And these are the guys who drop dead on the treadmill at the gym at 49. Oh, he looks so healthy. But on the inside, he's an old man from what this TMAO stuff is doing. Endotoxin. Nasty stuff. All meat comes from the slaughterhouse, even organic meat, and every cutting surface of the slaughterhouse is covered with the bacteria that spills out of the animal's gut. So there's intestinal bacteria on every piece of chicken and veal and meat you get from the supermarket. Well, these bacteria die, and when they die, their cell walls break up and form this stuff called endotoxin. Nasty stuff. This stuff releases histamines. It makes your blood clot. It slows your heart down. It sets off inflammatory reactions. And this stuff is heat stable. Cooking the burger doesn't get rid of this. And if you are choosing to add meat into your diet, not a good thing to do. The very act of cooking meat creates carcinogenic substances that rub on your colon wall and set off colon cancers. And these animals in the feedlot are fed bushels of grains every day, sprayed with herbicides and pesticides and antibiotics, and they all concentrate in the animal's flesh. And so the paleo folks are, really ascendant right now, and they eat like the cavemen. Well, the cavemen died in their 40s and 50s. This is a diet of death, and the great way to give yourself colon cancer is to pack your colon full of meat 2-3 times a day. It's a great way to give yourself heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, autoimmune diseases. These folks are setting themselves up for an epidemic of serious diseases. That pendulum's going to swing back hard on the folks who transgress natural law. We are plant-eating creatures. We are not homo carnivorous. And if you try and eat the diet like a mountain lion, you're going to suffer a terrible fate. Yet most doctors are practicing medicine like what our patients are eating has nothing to do with these diseases. And this must come to an end, and I'm working as hard as I can to educate my fellow physicians that what their patients are eating is the main reason they're sitting in front of you, overweight, diabetic, hypertensive. It's not genetic, it's the food, it's the food, it's the food. And it's unethical, it's becoming literally unethical for physicians not to share this information with our patients. Here, I use that word intentionally, here is the principle of medical ethics from the AMA. And it says the physician shall keep up on the latest in scientific knowledge and make relevant information available to their patients. We're supposed to share that a plant-based diet will reverse these diseases. And any physician who is not sharing that information with their patients this day and age is not practicing high-quality medicine, to say the least. Now, when I went to medical school in the Pleistocene age, I was taught that nutrition's easy. All you just need is some sugars for energy, you need some protein to build structure and enzymes, and you need some fats to get you through the next famine. Just have some of every day, throw in some vitamins and minerals, and you'll be fine. This is an outrageously outmoded, oversimplified view of nutrition. The reality is we now know that our food is chemically alive. And within minutes of eating anything, molecules of that food are washing through every cell in your body where your DNA lies unfolded. And the food molecules in your lunch or your breakfast wash through your cells, and they play your DNA like a piano. And they turn genes on, they turn genes off. They make enzymes disappear. Every meal changes us on a genetic, molecular level. Food brings in not only nutrients, it brings in information. The science is called nutrigenomics. It's how our food changes us. It's how our food turns our genes on and off. And we got to stop pretending this doesn't happen. This is where aging happens. This is where cancer starts. This is where immunity resides. This is where healing happens. Our food turns our genes on and off, and we have that power. People say, oh, I got bad genes. No, whether those genes work or not depends on how you treat them. In one sentence, you can just say your genes may load the gun, but it's your diet and your lifestyle pull the trigger about whether that disease, you may have a propensity towards a disease, but whether it actually manifests in your particular body depends on the molecules you flow through those tissues hour after hour, day after day. You don't have to be a geneticist to understand that the genes that are going to be turned on by this fuel mixture and all the toxins that it contains is going to be fundamentally different than the genes that are going to be turned on by this fuel mixture. And this salad represents the entire world of plant-based nutrition, all the green and yellow vegetables and fruits and legumes, etc. Fundamentally different genes, because these foodstuffs bring in these molecules that are inherent in the plants, and they are stabilizing molecules. They're antioxidants. They absorb free radicals. They promote tissue regeneration. They give the chemical message to your tissues, shh, calm down, everything's okay. And this is what you want to bathe your tissues with hour after hour, day after day. And the food will change you two ways, either directly, the way that new 5GC turns on your genes, or as I mentioned, the food will change the microbes in your gut, and they in turn will change you by changing what molecules get into your bloodstream, your immunity, etc. But food changes us. This is more than just what's for lunch. Now you got to decide, how am I going to change my body genetics for better or worse? To practice medicine without understanding the powerful factors that food brings to your patient's medical state reduces the physician to be like the blind man and the elephant, where these blind men stumble upon an elephant. Each one grabs a different part of the elephant, but none of them have the faintest idea what a whole live elephant really is. Well, that's the problem with disease these days. All the specialists are practicing medicine in their own little cubicle, looking for some genetic problem or some unknown factor. But the truth is, it's not unknown. The truth is, it's the food that the patients are eating. If they're eating the Western diet, it bubbles up and through all the organ systems. One organ system will complain first, and that's the specialist you're going to wind up seeing. But the cardiologist sees the clogged arteries, and the endocrinologist sees the type 2 diabetes, and the physiatrist sees the inflamed joints, and the rheumatologist sees the autoimmune disease, the neurologist sees the dementia, the dermatologist sees the psoriasis and the hives, the gastroenterologist sees the Crohn's and colitis, the surgeon sees the diverticulitis. They're all looking at the same disease. It's what their patients are eating. It's the food. It's the food. It's the food. It's not etiology unknown. Once you see this, you start seeing it, as Gina said, you start seeing it everywhere. It's the food, doctors. Stop looking for unusual causes. And the truth is, the more profound overriding truth that everyone here needs to take away with them is that if you run a whole food plant-based diet through your tissues hour after hour, day after day, month, when you adopt this kind of diet, the changes are remarkable. What we routinely see, as people run a whole food, plant-based diet through their body, the obesity starts to melt away. The arteries open up. The high blood pressure goes down. The joints stop hurting. The skin clears up. The lungs stop wheezing. The bowels start working. The energy level goes up. And they turn back into normal, healthy people that you see on the bike path and the health food store, and you wave at them. That's the only place I want to see my patients. And people get healthy. And that places lots of good news in the hands of both the patients and the doctors. Certainly for the gastroenterologists who are dealing with Crohn's disease and colitis, these horrible diseases that just destroy your life with inflammation and infection. Yeah, ask most gastroenterologists, what do you tell your Crohn's patients to eat? It doesn't matter. Let them eat whatever they want. Never been any studies that show that food makes any difference. Really, doctor? Have you taken the time to look? Have you sat down at PubMed and typed in diet and inflammatory bowel disease? Your screen will fill up with studies clearly showing that what the patient is smearing on the lining of that intestine has everything to do with why that intestine is so angry. And here's the mechanism. Here we are down in the intestine. And these little finger-like projections sticking up, the villi, is where absorption of our nutrients takes place. And the villi secrete, secrete mucus to keep the food sliding along. And in this mucus lives our trillions of microbes, our microbiome. And these are wonderful microbes, and they make vitamins for us, and they digest fiber. They're wonderful microbes. But you want them just loosely floating in the mucus. You don't want them sticking to the villi and invading the tissues. You want them just loosely floating around, and that's what happens in a healthy gut. But when a person eats meat, animal fat, sugar, wheat, and these low-grade detergents that keeps the candy bars soft, the junky sugars, this stuns the ability of the mucus to keep the bacteria from sticking to the tissues, and you get what's called a localized acquired bacterial clearance defect. And what happens is that the bacteria start sticking to the tissues and invading them, and then you get this nasty inflammatory reaction. And if you take those nasty foods out, take out the animal fat and the sugars, and treat them like they do at the clinic I was working at. You give them rice gruel and blended squash and melon chunks and papaya and mashed bananas. The gut settles right down. It's not that hard a disease to control. When you change your food, you change the gut bacteria. If you're eating meat, you're going to summon up Bacteroides bacteria that do nasty things down there and eventually produce byproducts that promote cancer growth. If you change to a plant-based diet, within days, the microbes start changing, and the good guys, the Prevotella, start growing, and these guys suppress inflammation. They inhibit cancer growth. What we eat changes us. We can't, this out of sight, out of mind. Don't kid yourself. Every meal changes us. It changes our microbes. It changes our genetics. We need to really respect food and take advantage of what it offers. And folks who maintain a plant-based diet, they wind up essentially free of their disease. It may take a couple of starts with medications, but eventually this is the key to keeping these Crohn's and colitis conditions coming back. In fact, everything the gastroenterologists treat basically is from what their patients are eating, whether or not the specialists want to acknowledge that. Similar. Type 2 diabetes is a disease of fat toxicity. All the fat that's on this man's body are clogging up his muscle cells. Here's a muscle cell. Here's sugar that we need to get into the muscle cell to burn it. But a high-fat diet puts all this sugar, all this fat into your cells, and they clog up the insulin receptors, so insulin can't work, and that keeps the sugar from moving into the cells. The liver gets fatty as well, and it stops listening to insulin's message and keeps pouring sugar into the blood. And belly fat puts out these molecules called cytokines, and they interfere with the insulin receptors from the outside. So between the fat clogging up the muscle cells, clogging up the liver cells, and producing these inflammatory molecules from the belly fat, no wonder obese people develop type 2 diabetes. You get them on a whole food plant-based diet, the body burns this for fat, the insulin receptors open up, the fat leaves the liver, and the diabetes goes away. It's reversible disease. You don't manage it. You cure this thing with a whole food plant-based diet. There's classic studies showing put people on a whole food plant-based diet. Here's their hemoglobin A1C, a marker of how high their blood sugar is. This is the standard dietary association's diet, and plant-based diet does even better than that diet. Here's their bad lipids. Their cholesterol goes down. And even bad old diabetic neuropathy gets better. Here they had 21 patients with painful diabetic neuropathy. In 2 weeks, put them on a low-fat plant-based diet, gave them a slug of B12 every day, and out of the 21 folks, 17 became pain-free within 2 weeks. 4 had partial improvement. This is Milton Crane's work. The whole food plant-based diets will cure most of these diseases. And you can eat all you want. There's no portion control. There's no calorie counting. If you go back for a 4th bowl of vegetable soup, who cares? It's vegetable soup. It's fiber and water. You pee it right out. It doesn't stick to you. And that's the beauty of this food, is guilt-free eating. Just eat till you're full and get on with your life. There's no reason to obsess over it or make eating an anxiety-filled event here. And be ready, if you're on insulin or metformin, be ready to cut the dosage in half or stop it altogether, because this disease goes away and you'll develop a dangerously low blood sugar. The folks with the sore inflamed joints, so a lot of these folks with rheumatoid arthritis and other types of inflammatory arthritis, if they go on a plant-based diet, here's a Kelsen-Krog study, 27 patients were put on a plant-based diet, and within 4 weeks, Within 4 weeks, everything's getting better. The joint swelling is going down, the grip strength going up, the blood tests are getting better, and the benefits were still present a year later for the folks who were following it. It may not be all you need to do, adopting a plant-based diet, but it's square one. You may need some medications for a while. There's other things you may need to do, but until they adopt a plant-based diet, all the other medicines are just suppressing symptoms, and they're going to be using more and more powerful immune suppressants. Get them off the meat. And when you are chewing on a chicken bone, you're eating muscle and nerve and cartilage and tendon. And well, that's what's inflamed in your joints. You've got to make that connection that some of these proteins get out in the bloodstream and cause adverse immune reactions to these foods. It's not what we're supposed to be eating. The asthma folks, Lindahl study, 35 patients, active asthma, pulled the dairy out basically within a year, almost all cases. The medications were gone, significant decrease in asthma symptoms. These diseases are reversible. Acne, what patients eat has nothing to do with the skin. Oh, really? Tell it to the Nelson twins here. They pulled out the dairy and the oils out of their diet, and their skin cleared right up. Absolutely, these are definitely plant-based disease. These are food-related illnesses. And the cardiologists should rejoice. They have the ultimate tool to reverse this nasty disease, these plaques that build up in the arteries. These are inflammatory lesions from the arteries being injured by meal after meal of cooked animal protein and cigarette smoke and stomach acid and cola drinks and sugary snacks. This is what injures the artery walls, so they get inflamed and these plaques build up. Well, you go on a plant-based diet, stop the meat and the oils and the sugars and all of that, and the junk sugars, and these plaques regress. They get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then the inner lining reestablishes itself, not by magic, but because the bone marrow is constantly putting out showers of stem cells that reupholster the arteries like new paving stones, and they turn back into normal arteries again. And you wind up with spectacular x-rays. Here you see an artery and a heart that should all look like this, but this rat-eaten area here are plaques encroaching into the blood flow column. 30 months on a plant-based diet, these plaques melt away, and this artery becomes this artery, same person, same artery. This is the power of a plant-based diet to reverse this killer disease that kills 1 American every 30 seconds. And yet the doctors, we don't want to, just keep taking your statins till you need your stent. It's really unethical for doctors to withhold this information, that a plant-based diet, to withhold this from your asthma patients, from your skin patients, from your colitis patients, from your blood pressure patients, from your diabetes patients, and certainly from the blood vessel patients. A whole food plant-based diet is the definitive treatment for these conditions. And if your doctor isn't talking to you about them, then educate her or find a different doctor. But the public needs to educate themselves and blow past this bottleneck of ignorance that the medical profession is putting in our way, and get right to the heart of it. These diseases are caused by the Western diet, and changing our anatomy dictates that we really should be eating, makes these diseases go away. You know, if someone complains to me of headaches, when do you get headaches? Every time I hit myself in the head with a hammer. Well, then maybe you want to stop hitting yourself in the head with the hammer. And when they stop hitting themselves in the head with the hammer, the headaches go away. Oh, doctor, you're so smart. He cured me. I didn't cure you. Just stop hurting yourself with the food that you're eating. And it's the same thing with these diseases. If the doctors don't have the power, you have the power every time you sit down with a knife and fork in your hand. If you have this disease, get Dr. Esselson's book, follow his advice to the letter, and you will free yourself from the curse of the clogged arteries. Certainly happened with my patient Ken, 12 weeks on a whole food plant-based diet, dropped 25 pounds, normalized blood pressure, and turned back into a normal, healthy guy. So I urge people to educate themselves. There's wonderful information available. Go to PCRM, Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine, and go to PCRM.org. If you are a physician or a health professional, There's tremendous information available. They've got a good curriculum guide on getting plant-based nutrition into medical school curricula. I'm involved with that. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But you can help patients, evidence-based programs for weight control, for diabetes, for heart disease. There's good, solid science behind these programs. And medicine gets fun again. Patients get healthy. Instead of this dreary degeneration they all go through, you get to see people getting healthy right before your eyes. Doctors can earn continuing medical education credits through plant-based nutrition. There's wonderful conferences. PCRM has theirs in August in Washington, D.C. The Plantrition Project. These are doctors from around the world. I'll be speaking in San Diego this year at this conference. We'll have over 1,000 physicians from Ireland, Australia, India, Israel, around the world. The plant-based light is going on in physicians' head around the world, and we are talking to each other. A new era in plant-based medicine is dawning. It's really exciting. If you want to find a plant-based doctor, go to plantbaseddocs.com, and you'll find a map there with lots of plant-based doctors planting their flag there. Lots that can be done locally. If you're not a health professional, you just want to learn more about it, there's some wonderful films. If you've not seen What the Health, Forks Over Knives, or An Eating You Alive, see these films. They will change your life. And as I said, if you're a person who wants information, go to PCRM and check out their nutrition. If you are a health professional, go to Health Professionals, and you'll get all the information that you need. And then when you go to Forks Over Knives, go to their website, you'll find recipes and food plans. They will walk you through this transition. There's no reason to think, well, I don't know what to do next. There's plenty of help available. And I urge take advantage of it. Susan Pitcairn did a wonderful front and back. Here's substitutes for all the animal-based meals you've been eating. You can download this one. The other side of this sheet is dinners and desserts, etc. Go to susanpitcairn.com/blog. Download this sheet. There's plenty of great information around. Lots of things to have for breakfast. You're going to be learning about those here. Lots of things to have for lunches and dinners. And the food itself is a delight. You can do it any cuisine. You can do it Italian style with pastas and pasta fazoli's. You can do it Mexican style with burritos and tacos, and just do it plant-based. Chinese style, plenty of stir fries and tofu dishes. You can do it Japanese style with edamame and sushis. There's no reason. This is not a diet of deprivation. If you're an Indian food fan, lovely curries and masalas, lovely things to eat. And even if you're stuck out in the fast food jungle there, you can make a sandwich happen or a burrito happen at most places if you look and get creative. The human body loves plant-based fuels. We function superbly on them. You're going to be hearing from Robert Cheek and other plant-based athletes here, but have no hesitation to adopt this plant-based diet. And if you care about the rest of this world and the future and the kids, then you definitely should be interested in a plant-based diet. An animal-based diet and the industrial production of animal flesh is the #1 driving force for every ecological disaster that we face. This is why we're cutting down the forest to make cropland and grazing land for beef. Most of the soil is eroding off farmland, off soybean and cornfields for animal fodder. Most water in this state goes to alfalfa, corn, and soybeans. Most water is polluted with herbicides, pesticides, and manure from growing animal fodder. Most species going extinct because we're cutting down their forests looking for grazing land. And we raise and slaughter 70 billion animals a year on this planet. Every one of them is breathing out carbon dioxide. They're Belgian grains grown with ammonia fertilizers. All these put greenhouse gases into the air. And it's the #1 reason why this planet is getting warmer. If we adopt a plant-based diet, the forests come back, the waters purify, the soil stabilize, it will heal this planet. And it's really what's required. To educate themselves about this, go to the website, and you'll see the films and books by Dr. Richard Oppenlander. This is right where the meat and dairy industry want us, is comfortably unaware. Just keep eating those burgers and everything will be fine. Well, it's not going to be fine. So educate yourself and And it will motivate you even more to order the bean chili instead of the beef chili, which is the terrible sacrifice. Just order the bean chili instead of the beef chili. My profession is hanging back. It's a real bottleneck because doctors are refusing to recognize the importance of what our patients are eating. So I'm on a lecture tour sponsored by PCRM, going around to the medical schools, giving the first, second, and third year medical students the lecture I wish someone had given me 50 years ago. That's saying that you're not going to be seeing leprosy and smallpox. It's the food your patients are eating. Ask them about what they're eating. Get them on a plant-based diet, and you will cure these diseases. I wish someone had told me that 50 years ago. I went to the University of Michigan 2 weeks ago, Wright State. I went up to Montreal to speak to the kids at McGill, and we're going to be continuing more medical schools starting next month. I'm doing everything I can. If you want to get information about this work, go to my website, drklaper.com, and you can support our work. It's an exciting time on every level. Patients need to, and the public needs to educate themselves about the importance of plant-based diet. Just eat it yourself and you won't have to deal with your doctor. There should be I don't have a plant-based diet. It doesn't matter. You eat a plant-based diet, turn yourself into a lean, healthy person with normal numbers. You won't need to see a doctor. If you cut your finger, go to the local urgent care unit and get your finger sewed up. But by and large, you're not going to be able to won't need to hang on to your doctor's advice because you'll know more than she does or he does. And I have to acknowledge Gina's wonderful service, 360 Health Connection. Stay connected with her and get her guidance. There's a lot of good information. Take advantage of all the experts that are being walking around here this week. And a healthier future should be yours. And as I said, I want my patients to. The only place I want to see them is in the health food store and the bike path. And other than that, go live your life. And so I will basically say the same to you and see how much, if I have any time left. I probably went way over here, but 9:42, not too bad. All right, so I'll probably have some time for questions, and I'll be outside. I don't have a book to sign, but I'll be hanging out there for questions and answers if I can be of service. So lots of good news. This is a good news conference. There's so much bad news out there. But the good news is that we have the same digestive system that our gorilla and bonobo cousins who are up in the trees this morning eating leaves and fruit. We got the same kind of digestive system. When we start eating the food of the mountain lions, death happens inside of us. You eat death, you wind up a dead animal as well. But you eat live plants, and you turn into a nice, healthy person who stays out of the clutches of people like. So with that, I can tell you there's a lot to look forward to as far as your energy level, as far as those sore joints, the skin, whatever you've had, it's probably the food you're eating. Clean up your diet and most things go away. And then you will be free to do what I wish for all of you, and that is to live long and prosper. Questions? Yeah. Thank you. Got time for a few questions? Anyone? Yes, stand up real loud and shout it out. Sugars themselves are not evil. Our body burns sugars. We are sugar-burning organisms, no matter what the paleo folks tell us. Fat is an emergency fuel. Our daily fuel is the sugars that are found in plants. And as long as they're in their whole form, you're not going to get in trouble. The fructose that's in an apple, when eaten as a whole apple, is lovely, and it comes in with a whole host of vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and fiber. Yay, apples are wonderful, and yes, they have some sugar in it. But once you take that fructose out, if you make high fructose corn syrup or high fructose syrup of any type, you start concentrating these sugars, and you leave all the nutrients that are necessary for their metabolism, you leave them behind. It's just a pure sugar. So the fiber, the phytonutrient, all that stuff got thrown into the compost. And at this point, the sugar molecule, especially fructose, becomes a toxic molecule because our muscles can't burn fructose. There's only one organ that can metabolize fructose, and that's your liver. And so when you're eating concentrated fructose, it's injuring your liver, and you wind up with fatty livers and all sorts of problems. So basically, got to just put sugars in in their proper context. If they're part of the whole food that made them, don't worry about it. How many apples can you eat? 8, 12? I mean, it's still mostly fiber and water. You're not going to get in trouble from the sugar in the whole apples. Drinking 12 glasses of apple juice, that's a lot of fructose, and not something that you want to do. And finally, the worst abuse of sugar is eating sugar as a food. When you have a Snickers bar in your hand, that's a chunk of sugar. You have a donut, a piece of coffee cake, a muffin. That's a chunk of sugar that you are eating. I'm going to eat this hunk of sugar as a food now, and you eat it as a food. It was never meant to be eaten as a food. It's a flavoring. We're talking about a half a teaspoon of sugar in your tea or a half a teaspoon of maple syrup on your cereal. That's fine. That's a flavoring. That's a proper use of it. But eating it as a food is the problem. What happens when you eat it as a food? Suddenly your bloodstream is running thick with sugar. The sugar molecules stick to proteins all over your body. It glycosylates them. The heat of your body then oxidizes them, and you wind up damaging important proteins in your eye. It gives you cataracts in your skin. It gives you wrinkles in your blood vessels. It decreases oxygen delivery. So this is the problem with eating sugar as a food. It sticks to your proteins and injures them. So if you want something sweet, have a mango. Have some melon chunks, have a papaya. That's what they're here for. That's where to get your sweetness. If you're going to use these concentrated sugars, do it in half teaspoon amounts as a flavoring, and don't eat sugar as a food. And that not only is the obvious sugary things, the candies and the cakes, but also the flour products, especially white flour, white bread, buns, of hamburger buns, things like that, even white flour pasta. Not great stuff, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Don't be eating flour products. Get rid of the flour products, and the weight really comes off there. So those are the 3 issues with sugar. Eat it in their natural forms. A little bit as a flavoring is okay, but don't eat sugar as a food, including flour products. Okay. Yes, ma'am. She's saying when she eats lots of starches, she can start feeling fatigued. It depends on the kind and form of starches that you eat. If you eat a whole lot of, and white potatoes will jump into the bloodstream pretty quickly as far as raising your sugar level. This changes your brain chemistry. It can make you a little sleepy, and high carbohydrate meals can do that. If that's the case, to definitely eat more, change the balance and fill your belly up with the greens and the other whole foods that don't raise your blood sugar so much. But there's an issue of weight loss here, and I'm going to be making a whole series of tapes on this. But carbohydrates, I hate carbs. They're carbohydrates. These are sugars that are made by plants. They cannot turn into fat. Let me say it again. Whole carbohydrates, even from potatoes, cannot turn into fats. The body will not blow apart a glucose ring and then construct a long-chain fatty acid molecule. It doesn't do that. And if you think about it, before Western food got there, the average Chinese folks up and through World War II, and we're eating 2-3 pounds of rice a day, and they're skinny. Why? Because once you've got all the sugar stored on your body and your muscles that you can handle, if you eat a big carbohydrate meal, the body's going to burn that off as heat. If you have a couple of potatoes and some rice at dinner, just pure carbohydrates, you're not going to turn that into fat. You'll stick your foot out from under the covers at night, and your body temperature will go up 1/4 degree, and you'll burn that extra carbohydrate energy off as heat. But if you eat sugars in the form of fats, if you eat sugars along with fats, ice cream is fat and sugar. Okay, well, if you eat that combination, you pour oil on your pasta, you put earth balance margarine on your baked potato, if you add fat to sugar, because sugars are so much easier to burn, you're going to burn that sugar and you're going to store the fat for later. It's that fat-sugar combo that's really that's sticking to you and keeping people heavy. So before people blame those carbs, I'm eating those carbs. No, you're eating carbohydrates with readily absorbable fats at the same time, and that's what keeps people stuck. The carbohydrates alone cannot and will not turn into fats. So stop pouring oil on your pasta. Stop using oils in general. They're just liquid fat in the bottle. There's nothing magic about olive oil. And the sooner you stop pouring it on your food, the healthier you're going to be, and you'll see that weight loss, if that's what you're after, finally starts to happen. You can have nuts, you can have tahini dressing, you can have oily foods, but pour it on your broccoli, pour it on your salad, not on the potatoes or the rice. Okay. You can have baked potatoes, but put salsa on it. Don't put margarine on it. Don't put oil on it. And look for those obvious fat-sugar combos. And again, this is just for the weight loss. So if you're already a skinny vegan, none of this makes any difference. Don't let any of this bother you. But if you're why can't I lose this weight? It's because you're eating fat and sugar in some form. And as I said, you're got sugary, fatty desserts, or you're pouring oil on your pasta. Separate those out. You'll be fine. Yes, way in the back, real loud, and then we'll get to you.
I have fibromyalgia. I've already been vegetarian for years, but if there's specific foods or how you might speak about that. Even something I've discovered is called electromagnetic sensitivity, where Wi-Fi makes the fibromyalgia pain worse. So just looking at, I guess, inflammation in general, your thoughts on what could be helpful for that.
Inflammation often has a lot to do, again, the food we eat determines the microbes that live in our gut, and those microbes may be putting out molecules that kick up the inflammatory issues. So I would, this is the kind of problem that you need to do a 5-day food diary, write down absolutely everything that you eat, and bring it to a person who's skilled in plant-based nutrition to have a look at it. But basically, any dairy, when she says she's vegetarian, not vegan. So if there's any hidden dairy in there, even hidden as if there's any whey protein in a bread or anything, get out the dairy, yank out the wheat. In fact, all processed foods, all flour products, get them out of there. Anything out of packaging boxes, get them out of there. Get this person down to just whole foods that grew out of the garden, square one. Then you can do things, you can add omega-3 fats, et cetera, et cetera. And here's someone who would probably benefit from fasting, start with just a 1 day, then a 2 day, and a 3, work up to a 5-day water fast once a month. And this has a profound anti-inflammatory effect. So she needs to really clean up her diet, get rid of all processed foods, all wheat products, all dairy products, and consider intermittent fasting. We're building up to a 5-day fast once a month, and that's often proved to be very effective in fibromyalgia. Hi. What is sophisticated question? Yes, about keto diets here. When you stop eating sugars, our daily fuel is sugar. We run on sugars. Don't let anybody tell you different. And in their whole form, they are healthy for us. Whole grains, legumes, fruits, vegetables, they have carbohydrates, and that's what we burn on a daily basis. When you stop eating carbohydrates, in about 48 hours, you're going to start burning off fat tissue. And back 1 million years ago, on the African savanna, you could see easily, 3-4 days may go by before you find the next berry bush with fruit on it. And intermittent fasting was probably the rule back then. And our body gets good at that. And a brief period of burning fats, which puts you into ketosis, which is where this keto thing comes from. It's a good thing. And that's what this intermittent fasting is about. Once a month, 5 days in ketosis is a good thing. It cleans out your cells on a cellular level. Does a lot of good things that we can talk about. The problem is you don't want to stay in ketosis week after week, month after month. We're Americans. If a little is good, more must be better. If 5 days of ketosis is good for you, then how about 6 months? But that'll really fit me up. No, it's not. It's an emergency state. And after a while, you are producing a lot of acids that really start taking a toll on the body. So her question is very sophisticated. She says, how often can you do that? And once a month, absolutely. For 4 or 5 days, I think it's a fine idea. Twice a month, absolutely, you could do that. I've got patients who every other weekend drink water from Friday to Monday, and they're in ketosis by Monday. That's a lovely thing to do. So intermittent fasting, intermittent episodes of ketosis is fine, but you don't want to stay in ketosis more than 10 days at the most, 2 weeks at the most. In fact, you ought to be, you ought to be under some supervision. Don't stay in that state for month after month. It's hard on your kidneys, hard on your bones. It's going to increase the risk of cancers. It's not a healthy thing to do to yourself. Okay, I think we're about running out of time here. 3 more minutes. Okay, so it's wonderful that you're here today. The fact that you've walked through this door says that you're open to learning. You know that food, there's something up with this plant-based stuff, and you need to know more about it. I saw most of the hands go up there when Gina asked who's already plant-based. But you can see it's a vast field, and there's more fine-tuning to be done. There's more sharpening your focus. There's more getting real with yourself about not cheating. You can do a lot of vegan junk food cheating on yourself there, and it hurts us. Your body is never not looking. You can't tell your body, look over here and have a cheeseburger there. Your body knows, your bloodstream knows. I show what your blood looks like. There's no fooling it. Shakespeare said, "Till thy known self be true." Dr. Klaper says, "Thy own health be true, thy own arteries be true, thy own breast tissue be true, thy own colon wall be true." Because most Americans, when I'm sitting at the gate in the airline terminal there, and I'm looking around at all these obese, sick, average Americans, I know this guy over there is on statins, and she's got type 2 diabetic, and she's probably got a breast lump, and he's probably got an early colon cancer growing in his colon, and they think they're healthy. But the truth is the diet they're eating is spawning all these diseases. And they're going to show up in their doctor's office after they find a lump or get the pain or whatever, and they'll be the sorriest person on earth. But if all of them would just jump on a plant-based diet, the majority of those diseases go away. The breast lumps start regressing, the diabetes clears out, the blood pressure comes down, you get off these medicines. This is the most powerful therapeutic strategy anybody can adapt, and it doesn't cost a thing. And same thing ecologically. You can't put solar panels on everybody's house tomorrow, but everybody could change to a plant-based diet tomorrow. It's just a matter of ordering the bean chili instead of the beef chili. Everybody could do that, and it would change everything. We would get healthy. There would be money to fix the roads and send all the kids to school to college for free with all the money we would save from the operations not done and the scans not done, the medications not prescribed, and all the lost work days not lost. A plant-based diet will change your individual fate. It will keep you out of the clutches of the doctors. It will give you a long, healthy, productive life. It will heal this planet. It will eliminate animal suffering and give the kids a chance at a sustainable future. And we owe them that for what we've done to this planet. It's our animal-based diet that's driving the planetary destruction. It's good to know that a plant-based diet will heal everyone, the people, the animals, and the planet itself. So whatever you need to do to take that next step, if you're a plain old standard American omnivore, then at least get rid of the meat and the dairy. Do that for starters, okay? Then you can work on the oils and the flour products and all that down the road there. But the dairy and the animal flesh are the two most dangerous foods that you're ingesting. Kick those out, find good substitutes for them, and everything gets easy and more delicious after that. So drink deeply from the knowledge fountain that you're going to be observing today. You got a lot of wonderful speakers here, and I'm so grateful to be honored to be part of this team. And again, hats off to Gina and her team for producing this. It's an act of love, and so take advantage of it. Eat plants, and everything's going to get better from here. Take care.